I've been riding it without anything holding the handlebars in, just cause I can. But this is just part of putting a new motor on. You've got to troubleshoot, figure out what you need to do, fine tune it. Really disappointing. Alright, so today I'm braving the cold. It's not too wet out there, but it is winter, so it's quite chilly, to try and work on the Mark 2.5, which so far has been a proper pain in the backside to get working. Now this morning I've put my cardboard gasket in, I've adjusted the clutch plate in there. I've got to go ahead and readjust the tension on the chain. I've put a bit more slack in the throttle cable because I suspect that had something to do with the ridiculously high idle that I had yesterday. Yeah, we'll take it out for another ride and hopefully we can sort out the idling issue. It ran pretty poorly for its first ride, but that's really not that uncommon for the first time you fire a motor up. It's normally the first couple of litres the engine will run like absolute crap before it levels out and you start getting that good performance and reliability that you get out of frames like, or engines I should say, such as this one. That's the same series engine as what I've got over here. Reverse camera, so I've got no idea if I'm pointing properly. But they're the same engines. So I'm hoping that this one will turn out to be as reliable as this one is. I'm not doing anything like the boost bottle. That was an experiment for that bike. I'm happy to leave it like this. This one, especially on this frame, is just, it's such a crap frame, and installing this engine on there, it's oh, I'm all dark there, you can't see me. Oh, hello. Yeah, so the Mark II frame, I'm remembering why I retired it in the first place. It's a bloody nightmare. But we'll ride it until it becomes unrideable again. The issue with this frame in the first place was that I dropped the bike, it slid out from underneath me on like my first big ride, and I've shown the rim a couple of times in my videos, but completely bent the rim out of shape. The Mark I frame, which is identical, same bike basically, things just broke, and that was just setting the thing up. So I don't expect this to last too long, but hopefully we get a couple of good rides out of it before something breaks. And in which case, I'll just go and try and find a better frame and we'll just transfer the motor over. Alrighty, so we just went for another little ride. I'm not seeing or feeling any massive amounts of torque, but it is really the first time I've ridden the motor. The power sort of comes on gradually. They're always a little bit sluggish when you first fire up. So a few things I have to look at is I've got to double check the tension on the head, make sure that they're nice and tight because I feel like I might be losing compression there. I've got to check the exhaust bolts because it does feel like that might be a bit loose. My little cardboard gasket has worked wonders. I don't have that stupidly high idle. I did want to show you the bike running, but it cut out just as I got the camera, and I'm not even going to try and start it in the backyard in this weather because the grass is just muck and I'll just slide. So the engine's not running fantastically at the moment, but this is just part of putting a new motor on. You've got to troubleshoot, figure out what you need to do, fine tune it. It may just be that I need to adjust the pin in the carby, but I won't do that until I've ridden it a couple of times. For now, it's just checking the tension on the head bolts and making sure that everything's done up nice and tight. Right, so I lowered my seat post, and I'm like, holy hell, the hole sealed itself up. As I went to go for a ride and the clutch wouldn't disengage, and I thought, oh, the clutch is stuffed. No, I'm going to have to remove the seat post, Dremel off maybe about that much, stick it back in. And it's starting to rain. All right, so what we see here, that looks familiar, goes in there. So I'm going to have to lop the seat post off maybe about there. Alrighty, now the whole reason that I wanted to lower the seat and have the issues with it as I did was because I'm sacrificing ride comfort for visibility. When I'm wearing the chest camera here on the Mark III bike, all you could see was front wheel and handlebars and not anywhere where I'm going. So to compensate for that, I've lowered the seat and, as you can see, raised the handlebars. Alright, now I've yet to confirm, but that should give us a decent riding position for the camera. So I'll go strap in now and we'll try and take you along for the first ride point of view. Alrighty, chest cam. randomly shut off, but why? so we're having some new engine dramas. What appears to be happening is that CDI boot is slipping off that spark plug. Now that's just the cheap plug that came with the kit. So I'm going to throw in one of my spare NGKs and we'll go out again. I'm thinking maybe weak spark might have something to do with torque delivery. It's not entirely uncommon for these spark plugs to fail straight out of the box. The first one I had went forever, but I guess that was the exception to the rule. So looking in here, there's a spare NGK B5 HS. Now on the Mark IV that actually melted my spark plug boot, but I'm going to risk it and throw it in anyway. So just looking at the plug that I pulled out, it's not looking too bad, which means my fuel mix is spot on. I'm using 25:1 straight out of the Mark IV bike. That didn't take long. The bike's effectively bricked. That's why. It's jammed down in there. The other little piece has come off the back. It's down in there somewhere. For the life of me, I cannot lift that tube out again. So that's it for the Mark 2.5. I have had enough of that one. So the 56 tooth test is going to go on hold. Aside from the fact that the engine's running like crap, I just don't. I've had enough. I don't want to deal with that frame ever again. This is the problem I had with this and the Mark 1, is bits just break so easily. And I've been around the block 3 times, so that's 8, 16, about 2.5 kilometers I've ridden on that motor. Well, let's round up and say 5, because I did go around a further block. So around 5 kilometers riding with a motor, and something's gone wrong. Guard snapped off while I was riding. Managed to kick the pavement. I suspect that this screw is stopping the choke from shutting all the way. So I'll replace that with a cable tie and give it another kick. Alrighty, so some fresh fuel in there. We've got it running again. I've been riding it without anything holding the handlebars in, just cause I can. As you can see, the bike's a bit wet. It's starting to smooth out its power band, although I'm still not getting the torque I was expecting out of that big sprocket, which is really disappointing. So I'm going to do something else now. I'm going to pop off that black cap, put on the chromey one from there, strap the camera on and go for another ride and take you with me. This is of course the cap that came with the kit. I've lopped off this bar here. Now I've already ridden it on the Mark IV. It basically just makes it sound a lot beefier without necessarily being too loud. So we'll go ahead and pop this one on and go for a ride. Shiny cap is on. Let's hit the road. took it up, but I am absolutely dripping with water. I'll work on my camera angles later. Alright, now the engine is starting to come into its own. It's getting a bit smoother the more I ride, so it should do alright. However, this is a big concern of mine. I am actually leaking fuel onto the head. Now, that could be quite dangerous. So I'm going to have to come up with a better way to insulate that fuel line, because the last thing I need is fuel igniting right between my legs. So the bike's doing okay. The handlebars haven't given me any issues yet, but I haven't been over any bumpy ground. I'm saturated. The bike is working okay, but I'm not going to ride it again until I can sort out that fuel line. And aside from anything else, I've ridden it far enough. I need to go round and check all the bolts to make sure everything's still tight. I'm starting to feel a little bit of torque, but nothing that's going to get me up the hills any easier than the 48 tooth would, or let alone the 44. But it's not uncommon for a new engine to not come into its power after you've seen a few tanks of fuel. So we'll keep riding it until something breaks. I'm going inside before this rain gets any worse. It's nothing but a fine drizzle, but you can't tell, but I'm saturated. So I'm gonna jump in a well-deserved wash and warm up. Hopefully the weather's fine enough tomorrow.